Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 25th of January 2018. So coming to the first article, Afghanistan on a slow fuse. The opinion is that erosion in the international consensus on rebuilding the country must be reversed before it is too late. Now, as obvious, the article is about Afghanistan. The context is that the war in Afghanistan is one of the longest wars in history. It started in the year 2001 in the aftermath of the bombing of Twin Towers in US by the Taliban. And since then, till today, till 2017, this war has been continuing with no peace coming to this country. So that is the context. Now, this article is largely not an analytical one, but it is a summary of the various challenges which Afghanistan is facing. So that is what is important. The first challenge is that of a massive loss of life. This is not only with regards to the civilian lives, which is happening every now and then because of suicide bombing and terrorist attacks, but also of the security forces. And the huge number of loss of security forces, this attrition of security forces is something that is not sustainable for the country. And this can have severe impact on the future of Afghanistan and the future military strength of Afghanistan. So that is one major challenge which Afghanistan is facing. The second issue is of huge expenditure in Afghanistan. Now, according to this editorial, approximately $1 trillion has been spent by US in Afghanistan. Also, India has invested $2 billion in Afghanistan. So these are huge sums of money which have gone into redevelopment and reconstruction of this country. But still the country is faced with several challenges. And if Afghanistan is not focused on now, if the international consensus on rebuilding this country is not arrived at now, this huge expenditure is going to be a total loss. So that is what is a major challenge. Another issue is with regards to a change in the American policy. Now, this is in the backdrop of a change in presidency in US with President Trump replacing former President Barack Obama. Now, in the current scenario, the policy that America is following is one of America first. And President Trump has not been very keen on rebuilding Afghanistan. So this is a major cause of concern and is a major challenge to already war-torn Afghanistan. So that is one issue here. Next, there is an issue of Pakistan's role in Afghanistan, especially in the backdrop of the recent tweet by US President, where he openly blamed Pakistan for deceit, and he said that Pakistan is failing to cooperate on a crackdown on terrorist groups active in Afghanistan. So in that respect, many experts are analyzing that this kind of open shaming of Pakistan by US could backfire and Pakistan could vacate and could move away from its stakes in Afghanistan, and this, many experts are fearing, will create a huge vacuum in that region which cannot be plugged. So this is another challenge to peace in Afghanistan. So that is one scenario. Another thing is that there is an eroding legitimacy of the government in Afghanistan. Now, this is one of the most important analysis. The government in Afghanistan is the National Unity Government. This was formed in the year 2014, and this was a cobbled government. It was a forced kind of a coalition that came up in Afghanistan that was brokered by the then US President Barack Obama. Here, two leaders, Mr. Ashraf Ghani, who is the president, and Mr. Abdullah, who is the chief executive, formed a government. And this post of chief executive was specially created to accommodate Mr. Abdullah. And because of this belligerence between the two leaders, there is a huge amount of confusion regarding the norms and the powers of each of these positions, of the position of the president and the chief executive. Also, they have failed to elect the prime minister. So that is, all of this is a major political conundrum in Afghanistan, and this has resulted in poor governance. So governance is one of the reasons why Afghanistan is failing to recoup from its war-torn history. So that is one major cause of concern. Another challenge is with regards to conducting elections. Now, not only the government is dysfunctional, there is a challenge to forming a new government also. Now, elections are due in the year 2018, but the security scenario is such that it is expected that elections cannot be held before 2019. Not only that, the Election Commission of Afghanistan has been suspended. Also, approximately 45% of the country, the region, is having such a poor security system that elections cannot be held in this 45% of the country. So even if elections are held, the legitimacy of those elections is definitely doubtful when elections cannot be conducted in 45% of of the area. So all of this is resulting in a deadlock of governance in this country. So that is a major challenge. Another issue is with regards to emergence of warlords. Now this was a scenario which was there in the Taliban era of Afghanistan, and this is re-emerging. This is something that is a very unhealthy precedent, as this can only happen when the government is failing. Now the article has a detailed analysis over here about the warlords, but that is not relevant for UPSC, so you only need to know that this scenario is re-emerging again. So that is one important challenge. Another thing is with regards to the diplomatic challenges that Afghanistan is facing. Now there are two axes in Afghanistan. One is the Russia-Iran axis, and the second axis is the axis led by the US. Now US is often blaming this axis of Russia and Iran for arming the Taliban, and Russia and Iran are criticizing the US on the grounds that the US is not allowing peace talks with Taliban, and they say that until and unless peace talks are held with Taliban, peace cannot be restored to Afghanistan. So in this kind of a international scenario, there is a deadlock of policy on Afghanistan, and as a result of which peace is something that cannot be restored in this region. So this is a major cause of concern here. This is a major challenge to peace in Afghanistan. Another issue is with regards to a zone of regional and global instability. Now, if peace is not restored in Afghanistan, then Afghanistan will become a breeding ground for terrorist organizations and terrorist groups who are already active in Afghanistan. And this is going to have ramifications on the global stability and more so on the regional stability, which is consequential for India. India is in the immediate vicinity of Afghanistan, and any breakdown in this country is going to impact India, and it is something that India will not be interested in. It is for this reason that India has had high stakes in the peace of Afghanistan. So this is a major challenge and major cause of concern. Another thing is about the frustration in the citizens of Afghanistan. Now, in the aftermath of the 2001 war and the destruction of Taliban, a number of citizens who were educated returned back to Afghanistan with an intention to rebuild this country. But with the war extending to 17 years, there is a huge amount of frustration in the civil society in Afghanistan, and this is a major cause of concern for this country. Now, with the discussion is over, but this article is of utmost importance in international relations, especially with regard to Afghanistan. Afghanistan is very much important for India's foreign policy. So that is the relevance of this article. It is a short summary of all the challenges that Afghanistan faces. Now with this, we'll discuss the next article, too much for too little. The opinion is that rather than seize new opportunities flowing from technology, bus corporations are lobbying for price control and heavy-handed regulation to obstruct new entrants. Now, the context of this article is about the public transport facilities in the country, and especially an analysis of these facilities in the backdrop of the climate change and rising congestion in the country. Now, this editorial is largely about a case study where focus is on Tamil Nadu and Chennai, but I shall not be analyzing this article from this case study point of view. Rather, I have extracted some generic points which are relevant for public transport facilities in India in general, and so you can use these in any UPSC answer related to public transport or urban transport. So that is what is the backdrop of this particular editorial. Now coming to the issues which have been discussed, the first issue is with regards to public transport policy versus good economics. Now in specific, this article is talking about the buses in the urban transport system, but you can even expand this to other transport system. For example, metros. You can expand it even to wider public transport system like the railways. Now in all these public transport system, what is observed is that the government is often not following good economics. There are often populist measures like low fares. All of these are resulting in the entire public transport system into becoming a loss-making endeavor, and these losses are then again filled by the government, and because of this repetitive compensation by the government, reforms and structural reforms is something that is not happening in this sector, and this is a major cause of concern. Another analysis which has been brought about is that because this is largely about using buses in the urban transport system, now what happens is that because of a poor quality of public transport system, the citizens are largely moving into personal transport systems like cars and two-wheelers, and this increases their travel costs are increased, and this again has economic ramifications as they will have less money to spend on other items. So this is another economic loss because of a poor public transport system in the country. So this is the analysis here. Another issue is with regards to a poor quality of the public transport system in the country. Now, the public transport system has largely failed in ensuring reforms. It has failed to modernize. Also, it has failed to acquire newer technology. So in all these perspectives, this has resulted in a poor quality transport system. The buses do not even have basic facilities like ACs. So obviously, it is very much obvious that the quality is very much low. So that is one analysis. Another thing is that despite the fact that the public transport system failed to reform, this was not the case of cars and two-wheelers. The industry has really reformed and the prices have really come low and they have become very much affordable. This has caused a major shift of the service users towards cars and two-wheelers, which are much more comfortable and much more convenient. So this is a major cause of concern, as this is not only a competition to the public transport system, this is also impacting climate change in the country because of increased fuel usage. Also, this has resulted in rising congestion on the streets. So this is a major cause of concern. Also, yesterday we had discussed that the road accidents are increasing. So all of this can be attributed to this rising congestion. So that is a major cause of concern. Another thing is about the competition that the public transport system in the country is facing, especially from app-based travel taxi companies like Uber and Ola. All these companies are major competitors now. They have much higher facilities like the Wi-Fi, they have ACs, they have door-to-door service. So definitely the competition to public transport system is rising day by day, and this competition cannot be ignored, and it is much needed that the transport system completely overhauls itself. So that is one analysis. Also, there is an issue of poor image. This is one of the most important analysis here because this is a behavioral aspect. Now, what has happened is that because of the poor quality of the urban transport system, it is considered as a matter of poor image to travel in the system. This is a behavioral aspect. This is a behavioral change that has happened. So now, even if the government is going to increase the number of buses or it is going to expand the public transport system, it is of utmost importance to change this behavior to bring back this section of the population which has now shifted to cars and two-wheelers. This problem is also a global one. An example has been given that the similar problems were faced in Europe, and European countries have now adopted a newer bus system for the future, and they are aiming to overhaul this problem of poor image of the public transport system. So this model can be adopted by India also. India has also, an example has been given that India has adopted a national bus code. It has launched this national bus code on the 1st of January this year, which aims at improving the quality and design of public transport systems. So definitely this is a laudable step, and it can improve the poor image of the public transport system. Another issue is with regards to the demand and supply. Now, a study has been given, which is the KPMG study. As per this study, approximately 4.6 lakh buses is what is needed to ensure 50% of the urban transport needs by 2031. So definitely there is a deficient supply and there will be an increased demand. This needs to be immediately responded to by the government. So this is one analysis that has been brought about. Now, another thing which is very important in this article is the suggestions that this article has offered. The first is that of addressing the public image. As I mentioned before also, that public image is a major cause of concern. I mentioned that the national bus code has been launched. Some other suggestions like a high priced public transport option for the affluent is something that has been advocated here. This high priced public transport system should have services like deluxe seats, it should have Wi-Fi, it should have AC, and this should be parallel to the cheap universal services which are offered to the masses. So that is one analysis which has been drawn in this editorial, and this is a good idea. Another thing is with regards to the private sector, the government should focus on increasing private sector and public transport system, and this will ensure better services to the citizen. This will help bridge the demand supply gap. So that is one analysis. Another very important aspect is that of GPS linkage. Now, the editorial has brought about an analysis that many a times private companies like Uber and Ola have more data about travel habits of the citizens in a city than the government. This is a cause of concern, and GPS is something that is a very common technology now, and this should be adopted in the public transport system. The buses should be GPS linked so that citizens can or the users can see on their mobiles only where a bus is, at what time it will reach. So all of these will improve the system, and this will make it highly digitalized. So this is something that has been advocated. Also, this is in line with a synergy between Digital India and Smart City project, which is much advocated. urban transport is something which is at the heart of smart city, and making this urban transport more digital, which should be based upon GPS, apps for public transport. All of this will make it much more beneficial. This is what has been analyzed. Now, another thing is that the editorial talks of an apex mobility cooperation. This should be a body, the editorial says that this should be a body in every city which should monitor the public transport system. So definitely this is a good initiative. Another thing is that it calls for making mobility as a service and as a competitive service, and providing cutting edge technology and better services to the citizens. So this is something that has been envisaged. Also, it talks about some other areas which need to be emphasized to strengthen the public transport system. For example, trains should be increased. Also, train services in the city should be improved. Also, some other ideas like the pod taxi in Delhi, hyperloop in Visakhapatnam. So these kind of services is something which should be explored. So this is what has been analyzed in this editorial. The editorial is important from urban transport point of view, from smart city point of view, so from urbanization point of view. So definitely the article is of much relevance. So coming to the next article, the arc to Southeast Asia. The opinion is that India and ASEAN must draw up a functional roadmap to enhance ties. The context is as obvious. It is about the ASEAN-India partnership. This is in the backdrop of the Republic Day chief guests. All the 10 leaders of ASEAN have been invited as chief guests for the Republic Day celebrations in India. Also, the year 2017 is marking the 25 years of partnership between India and the ASEAN. It also marks 15 years of summit-level interactions between the two countries, and also 5 years of strategic partnership between the two countries. So this is the context of this particular editorial. Now, the background is something about ASEAN. ASEAN was itself formed in the year 1967. It has 10 members. Initially, the members were Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. All of these you can locate on the map here. Malaysia, Thailand, and then later Brunei, Cambodia. Brunei is a small country here. Cambodia is here. Laos, you can here. Myanmar here. Vietnam. So all of these countries have formed this organization, which is the ASEAN. It is one of the most successful regional organization. It is an intergovernmental organization, and it aims to ensure economic, political, security, military, cultural integration and cooperation. So that is the basic background about ASEAN. ASEAN comprises of approximately 8.8% of the world population, and this population is higher than the European Union bloc, which is a 28-member bloc. So definitely ASEAN is of utmost importance. Now coming to the issues which have been analyzed in the editorial, largely the article is about the irritants between India and ASEAN. So that is what has been brought about here, and this is what is important. So the first is that of a mutual disillusionment between the two countries. Now, ASEAN feels that India is not actively participating in ASEAN. Considering the size of India and its potential, India is failing to contribute as much as it could to the ASEAN. Similarly, India feels that India is unable to achieve much from ASEAN. This is a major cause of concern. India is feeling that even in respect of trade, India has been left behind, and India has not been able to reap much benefit from ASEAN. So this mutual disillusion between the two zones, one being Asia and one being India, is something that is a major irritant and which is a cause of concern. Another thing is with regards to an analysis of South Asia versus the Southeast Asia. Now, the ASEAN is largely in Southeast Asia, whereas India's concerns are largely in South Asia. However, this is something that is changing. India has advocated an Act East policy for the development of India's Northeast. This is one important aspect. Another thing is that India has shifted its focus from South Asia in the backdrop of the breakdown of SAARC talks because of India-Pakistan relations which are worsening. And India is inclining more towards organizations like the BIMSTEC. And also now India is focusing much more on the ASEAN. So definitely India is increasing its focus on Southeast Asia, but India's major concerns are largely in South Asia. So this pulling of India between South Asia and Southeast Asia is something that is an irritant to the relationships. So that is one analysis. Another thing is with regards to the China factor. Now, China considers the entire ASEAN as its backyard. There is a huge controversy and stakes in the South China Sea. So any initiative by India to become more involved with the ASEAN is something that is not liked by China. Also, these countries are often apprehensive in linking developing their relations with India in order to appease China. So because of this China factor, the relationships are somehow stressed. So that is one irritant here. Another aspect is with regards to the economic issues. Now this is especially in the backdrop of the regional comprehensive economic partnership that has been proposed by the ASEAN. Now, all the ASEAN members are keen to sign this regional comprehensive economic partnership by the end of 2018, and India has been sidelined and been singled out in this issue because India is not very keen to sign the regional comprehensive economic partnership, as India feels that India's own concerns are something that are not going to be addressed. This economic partnership is largely about goods, and it is not focusing on services. It will be a free trade agreement, and this will not focus on the services, and India has a strength in services, and goods is something that is a weakness in India. Manufacturing sector is a weakness in India. So India feels that if India is going to open its doors for foreign products, then what it is definitely going to impact manufacturing in the country. It is going to impact the Make in India mission of the country. And ASEAN is not welcoming services. The degrees that our doctors and engineers are having, they are not recognized in the ASEAN countries. India has long been advocating for a free trade agreement in services, and this has not been accepted by the ASEAN. So this issue of regional comprehensive economic partnership is at present the biggest irritant between the two groups. So that is one analysis here. Also, there is an issue of bilateral partnerships. Now in this regard, often India is criticized for holding bilateral partnership. Especially India has been focusing more on Myanmar and especially Thailand, as they are more in the vicinity of India, and also they have stakes in the Bay of Bengal. So that is one arena here which is a major cause of concern, and this is creating some lack of trust in ASEAN. They are viewing India as being selective in its partnerships, and this is not being seen in a good spirit by all the ASEAN leaders. So this is a major irritant here. Another thing is with regards to digital technology sector. Now here there's a huge scope of development of digital technologies in the entire ASEAN. However, this has largely been taken advantage by China, and India has been left behind in this sector. Therefore, there is still some room for India to take benefit of the digital space of the ASEAN, and India is keen on doing that. So that is one cause of concern for India, that India wants to replace China in this region with regards to digital technology services. This is also in the backdrop of the advantage that India has in its IT sector. But again, for this to leverage this, India needs a free trade agreement in services, which the ASEAN is not allowing. So that is a major cause of concern. Next is with regards to some infrastructure projects. The most important being a trilateral highway between India, which will start from Manipur in India. It will pass through Myanmar and it will go up till Thailand. So this trilateral highway is something that India is envisaging as a link to ASEAN. It is expected that this highway can be expanded to Laos, and then it can be expanded to Vietnam, also to Cambodia. So this is a huge area, a huge scope here. But the issue is that these infrastructure projects by India and ASEAN are getting delayed. Even oil exploration by India and Vietnam is something that is envisaged as a huge infrastructure investment. But again, there are delays in these projects compared to China, where China is very much active in its dollar diplomacy, and infrastructure projects by China are far ahead as compared to India. So this is a major irritant. Another thing that has been advocated is that India should increase its air connectivity to the ASEAN, which is compared to China again very low. So that is one analysis which has been brought about. Another thing is that with regards to cultural contacts, definitely the country has deep cultural contacts with ASEAN, but this need to be expanded. At present, India is only giving scholarships to students for the Nalanda University in India. But it has been advocated that these scholarships should be given to major institutes like the IITs and the IIMs. So that is something that should be done to expand these cultural contacts. Another thing is that expansion should be done with regards to tourism between these two groups. So that is something that has been advocated in this editorial. Now, the opinion has been given is that definitely time and again, the potential of relationship is what is being raised by both the ends. Even India talks of a huge potential for relationship with the ASEAN, and so does ASEAN. But the implementation of these ideas is something that has been laggard and which needs to be accelerated. So that is the first opinion. Another opinion is with regards to the three C's, that is commerce, connectivity, and culture. Emphasis should be laid on enhancing these three C's. Definitely, ASEAN is very, very important for this year because of the fact as they have been the guests at the Republic Day ceremony also, and a question can be expected on ASEAN directly. So that's the importance of this editorial. Coming to the next editorial, recalculating ease of doing business. Now, the context here is that the World Bank has announced that it will revise its methodology to calculate ease of doing business. Time and again, this ease of doing business has been criticized even by India. Now, in the recent ease of doing business, India had got a ranking of 100th. This was the best ranking that India has ever got on the ease of doing business index. Also, something about the ease of doing business index, this is an index that is released every year by the World Bank, and it is based on 10 parameters, and it is these parameters that are often in question and often which are the most controversial. So that is one important aspect here. Now, coming to the issues that have been analyzed in this particular editorial, first is that of a political influence on rankings. This is something that has been time and again raised, and now this has been accepted by the head of the ease of doing business of the ease of doing business index himself, and he has accepted that there are threats. Then many a time the index is influenced politically. So this is a major cause of concern, because if this is the scenario, then it could have adversely impacted India in the past, or this ranking that has been an improvement in after so many years could have largely been because of a political influence. So such kinds of questions are something that are being raised. Another thing is with regards to a tool to attract investments. Now, often the ease of doing business index is a ranking is often used by countries as a tool to attract investments. Now, if the ranking itself is a flawed one, then definitely its utility as a tool is again questionable. So that is one analysis here. Another thing is with regards to India's stand. I told you that India has got a position of 100, which was one of its most improved positions, but still India has often raised objections to this index and has often question the methodology that this index has been using. So that is what India's stand is on this. Another aspect is with regards to the integrity of the World Bank. Now, in the backdrop of a severe challenge being raised to the ease of doing business index by the officials within the World Bank itself, this is a major question on the integrity of this index, which has been which is a continuous practice for so many years. So that is one issue. This could be used as an example in the ethics paper also. Another thing is with regards to the ideology versus business conditions. Now, often it is seen that in the ease of doing business index, the ideology of a country is what is given preference without analyzing the business conditions in the country. So this is a major criticism of this index. So this is what has been analyzed. Another thing is with regards to limited sample size. Now, often the ease of doing business index is often criticized for having a limited sample size. It only restricts itself to a few cities. For example, in India, focus is only on cities like Mumbai and Delhi, and other cities are not taken into consideration. So as a result of which the analysis is often weak. It might happen that progress in some countries, progress might be limited to only few cities, and based on that only they are given a higher ranking. So this is a major cause of concern here. Next issue is that of gaming rankings. Now here what has been raised in the editorial is that some countries could be gaming these rankings by tailoring their policies to the World Bank's criteria. This is a major issue, because if this has happened, then this is an unethical precedence that has been set. And instead of bringing actual structural reforms, simply by tweaking with the policies of the World Bank, they have achieved higher rankings. So this is definitely a cause of concern here. Another thing is that there's an issue of written rules versus ground realities. Often this index has been criticized that it is based on some written rules only, and it does not make much efforts to go to the ground and check the ground reality. So that is a criticism which is often raised against this ease of doing business index. Another thing which has been important here is that of ranking versus economic growth. Now, many a times it is seen that even if a country has got a high rank in this ease of doing business index, but this does not match with the economic growth and actual investment levels in the country. For example, Russia and Turkey have been continuously performing good in this index, but still the ground reality in these countries is different, and much investments is something that is not being done in these two countries. So this is one analysis which has been drawn with regard to the ease of doing business. This is an important happening because this index is something even on which India was basing its policies. So definitely this is important, and it could be asked directly. So that is the relevance here. Now coming to the next article, a turtle recovery plan. Now this article is not a very important one because this is a very specific article. A specific article on turtles and their protection is something that is rare to come in UPSC, but some important points can be analyzed from here. Now the context is that India is home to 5 species of turtles. That is the leatherback, the loggerhead, the hawksbill, the green and olive ridley turtles. And these turtles are protected under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Still, it is being seen that despite being home to such vast species, and also because of these protections, despite these facts, there is a huge amount of deaths of turtles that is happening every year in the country. So it is this death, these large number of deaths of these turtles which has been analyzed. Now, first is that an issue of bycatch. Now bycatch is the catch which happens along with fishery, which happens on the sidelines of fishing. Now it is not intended to catch these turtles, but they come in the fishing nets of the fishermen as a bycatch. So that is one issue here, that the fishing nets of these fishermen are not designed to avoid capturing of turtles, and many a times it results in deaths of these turtles, and it is something that is a major threat to their conservation. So that is one issue. The second issue is with regards to an overlapping of seasons. The turtle breeding season is overlapping with the fishery season, and this is something that the government should look into, and it should draw a diversion between these two seasons. Fishing should be prohibited during the breeding seasons of the turtle, is what has been advocated by the author here. Another thing is that of the role of the turtles in the marine ecosystem. Now definitely in the food chain the turtles have a major role, and also as for the general health of the entire ecosystem, for maintaining the health of the fish stocks, turtles have a major role to play. So if any scenario where the turtles are going to get threatened and that numbers are going to reduce as they are at the modern rate, so definitely it is going to impact the well-being of the entire marine ecosystem, and this is a major cause of concern, and this needs to be redressed. Another issue is with regards to the poor implementation of rules. Now there are several rules that the trawlers cannot enter deep into the sea, or for the times when the trawlers cannot enter into the seas to fish. All these rules do exist, but there is an issue of poor implementation, and as a result of which there is a huge impact on the entire ecosystem, and a large number of turtles are being killed. So that is one analysis. Another thing is that with regards to a poor use of technology in the protection of these turtles. For example, the author here has advocated turtle excluding devices. These are something that are used by the US, and these devices, if used properly on the trawler ships, can reduce 90% of turtles coming into the bycatch. So this is something that has been advocated. Also, the author has suggested that vessel monitoring systems through GPS vessel monitoring system should be implemented and should be continuously be kept on for the trawlers to ensure that the trawlers do not enter the seas when they are not allowed. During the breeding seasons of these turtles, they should not be allowed. So these points can be used if a question is asked. Also, these points can be used in general while discussing threats to the vulnerable species. So there some relevance is there of this particular editorial. Now, before we finish, some piece of information. We are starting a UPSC Prelims cum Mains classes from the 28th of January 2018. It shall be covering all the basics. So all interested candidates, please do get in touch with us. These are our contact details and this is our phone number. With this, we finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.